2016 Skoda Octavia 1.6 TDI. Just a video how to replace cambelt, also known as timing belt, and water pump. We have some coolant leaking there, so I believe it could be the water pump. This video can be applied to all VW engines. That means Volkswagen, Golf, Passat, Skoda, Seat, some Audis. This is 1.6 TDI, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it can be applied to 2-liter TDI as well, because with previous generation I found that the setup was the same. This is Euro 6 engine, slightly different to the previous generation. First, what we've done here, we raise the car, support it on stands as well, don't rely on jack on its own, so the more the merrier. On this side I've got bottle jack and a few stands. This jack we're gonna use for later on. I'm gonna show you where we need to support the engine. So raise the car, remove the top engine cover and the bottom cover, right wheel, and the cover on inside under the wheel arch. Top cover is really easy, just pop it off. If it's a bit stuck, give it a tap, take it off. Now we have a good access to all this business. This is our crankshaft pulley. This is our compressor, tensioner wheel, and we have alternator up there. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna remove the belt, auxiliary belt. So turning 16mm bolt here, anti-clockwise, we release the tension, then we drop it off. You can lock it as well with the pin. Sometimes I do that, sometimes I don't. There's like a little hole in there, and as you turn it, you just align hole with a hole and you can pin it. But I'm not gonna pin it, I'm gonna just remove it like that. One thing you need to remember as you take it off, you need to remember which way it was spinning. You can mark direction with some marker, or as I do, you find some letters on this one, like VW, AG, so it faces the same way, letters, as you take it off, because to make the belt to last longer, you have to make it to spin the same way. You can check it. If it has any cracks, you can replace it. It seems to be all right for now, so I'm gonna leave it. Next thing we are going to do to remove this pulley, it's held by 4 M10 spline, like this, spline bolts, and you can counter hold it with a 19mm 12-sided also spline or whatever you call it. This is essential tool for this job anyway, because you need to turn the crankshaft later on. So you can either counter hold it, or I'm gonna use a power tool on some not so strong setting, so I can remove it quick. Please mind, this pulley can be fitted only one way. As you can see, there is a pin here, so there is no other way. If this pulley is stuck, you can tap it a little bit with like a rubber hammer or something, but in our case it seems to be okay. We just take it off. And one thing I normally do, I place bolts where they belong. Any parts we take off, we just put bolts into them, so they don't stay in one pile, all these bolts, so we don't just mix them up later and then put it away. Later on we will need to remove this plastic cover, but we'll get to that later. Let's free up everything at the top. This is our cam belt. We got to the bottom of our cam belt already. Now at the top we need to free up this space. We're gonna remove the coolant expansion tank. We're not gonna disconnect it from hoses, just undo it and then just put it aside. Fuel filter, so also 2 bolts, 1 nut, and we're gonna probably release some hoses from here, move it all aside. Then we have an engine bracket, this one that holds the engine on this end. So for that we're gonna support the engine from the bottom with the jack, put some wooden padding. There are ways to support the engine from the top. You can put like a metal bar across and just hook it up to one of these, but I find it much easier with the jack. I used to do that with the support bar, but with the trolley jack is much easier, trust me. So we can start removing our coolant expansion tank, electrical connector, push it down first to release tension, and then you just undo the electric plug. Then it doesn't have any screws, it's just plastic tabs. You just push them like that, and the other one. There we go, and it's off. The only thing, there is a coolant pipe running underneath, and it goes across all these pipes here. Fuel filter is held by 2 bolts, 10mm bolts, and 1 nut just down there. It's always handy to have a little magnet to get that nut out. There we go. There it is. There is a little plastic tab to remove pipes from this coolant tank. And now we need to undo these 2 hoses to move all this business aside to free up this space. There are a few ways we can do clips, or there are quick release something, but I'm not sure. Never use this quick release. I'm gonna undo these. Now we can move this little hose with the box outside this plastic bracket, so all these are loose. I'm not quite sure how to operate. They don't look very trustworthy to me, this quick release. Apparently you can squeeze them and just take it out. I'll do the old school. I'm gonna remove these hoses. We're gonna put some tissues underneath, because we may have some diesel leaking. Not too much, but a little bit. Still keep it tidy. As you can see, I've used 2 pliers, this type, one squeezing the clamp, another one just pushing the outer bit out, so we don't break anything, so we don't pull just where they out of plastic and don't break any plastic. So simple as that. So get yourself pliers like this, always handy. It didn't leak much diesel, just few drips. So now we can move all this business all together outside, away from our job. And this. So now we go to the top cover of the cambelt. So we're gonna remove this 10mm hole that holds this coolant pipe, just to take it out of the way. Then we have these two pressure pipes. There are some pressure measurement pipes. So there is a screw here. When you're unclipping these clips, I recommend you to use screwdrivers, because you can easily rip this material. So just use a screwdriver gently, stick it through, and then you undo it. Next, what we are going to do is remove these two sensors from the brackets. They have connectors. So we have one more connector here. I don't think we need to disconnect it, just take it out of the bracket, because we are going to remove this bracket now. There is a T30 screw. Remove this wire from this bracket for the sensor, and then we're gonna move all these business away by undoing this clip. Now we can take all this business away. Perhaps you could have kept these two connectors to the bracket, so maybe I've done it a bit too much, but nevertheless, we remove these, simply screw, and just undo those two hoses, and one screw here that hold the bracket. So take this business away. This is pressure sensors. Next thing we need to do is remove this sensor, because it will be in the way of this cover. This cover is a bit tight, you'll see it in a minute, so we're gonna undo it. You can't fit the socket over it because of the wire. It will be tight, but once you get it loose, that can be done by hand. Mind your fingers, because as it goes loose, it goes really loose. There we go. Now you can simply... Oh, does it turn with the wire though? If it does turn with the wire, I need to release this wire and undo the connector at the other end. So this is what is happening now. It's turning with the wire, so that's why I'm gonna unwrap the wire, find the connector, undo the connector, and then turn this. There we go. Take the sensor out. Now, believe me or not, the most complicated bit of the changing cambelt on this car is removing this plastic cover. Last time I've replaced it, it was so I was struggling so much, I was afraid to break it, and it was this bit sticks to the DPF, and it's really so tight. It's only 2 plastic clips. You remove it and you will think, oh yeah, that's easy, and you get it as high as this, and then we have to wiggle out using some brutal force. Oh, this bit is a bit of a nightmare. I think this one was cracked from the last time. I have a little crack here, as you can see, but that's fine. But this bit comes out so hard. It's covered in metal. Probably it's like a heel shield, or maybe they covered in metal so we don't break it. Nevertheless, brutal force, insistence, keep going, and you take it out. Now we go to our cam belt. What we're gonna do, we're gonna remove the engine mount and support the engine from the bottom, and then we can do the cam belt job. Easy peasy lemon squeeziano. Now we go underneath the car, and we have a jug with some bits of rubber and piece of wood, and what we're going to do, we're gonna support the engine from the bottom. I've got it a bit oily, looks like I've got some oil leak somewhere. Nevertheless, we have a sump plug and a sensor on this side, so make sure you don't damage any of that. With a plank piece of wood you should be okay. Just raise the just support the engine. Don't need to put it too high, just make sure it's tight, it's supported, and then as we go we will move it up or down when we need it. But for now, it's just make sure it's tight and supported. Make sure it sits properly as well, not on a side somewhere. Now we go back up and let's deal with this engine mount. So we're gonna start with these 2 bolts that go from engine mount to the engine bracket. There is a bracket that holds the engine. So we're gonna undo these 2 18mm bolts, and if we can make them loose, that will mean that the engine is supported and it doesn't rely on this mount. So as you can see, both bolts I can move in a moment. This is all loose, and this is, now it is loose. So as you can see, we can take both bolts out. These bolts are stretch bolts, so ideally every time you remove them you have to renew them, put the new ones, because tightening torques for them, I'll tell you later because I can't take it out of my head now. You do some torques, Newton meters, and then you do some degrees, so they stretch a little bit. So every time if they stretch a little bit, that means there is a risk of breaking them. So I don't know. So most of garages reuse them. I know that for sure, because you just do them maybe without those degrees or something. So there is a difference between manual and real life. Quite often people avoid. If you love your car and if you want to do everything by book, I have to tell you, manual from manufacturer says renew these bolts because they stretch. I can renew them, from my experience, maybe every second or every third time I take them out. So I'm not that critical about them. Maybe I'm wrong, but I do it at my own risk. I warned you, you have to renew these bolts. I just make them tight and off I go. Then we can take this little 13mm bolt out. And the last two 16mm bolts, you need to use a long socket because this one has a threaded pin, which that's where the fuel filter used to sit, on this 1, 2, 3 points. So let's take 16mm socket and undo those bolts. So with the last bolt out, we can take the engine mount away. And of course, so we don't lose any bolts, we stick them all where they belong. This one can go in here. So now we have left with this bracket, which is bracket that holds to the engine mount and to the between engine and engine mount. It had on 3 16mm bolts. One is here, that's the easiest one. We're gonna raise the engine a little bit. Another one down there, and another one just from the bottom is this one here, right in the middle of the screen. So I'm gonna lower the engine here because I can't fit spanner. Spanner I can fit, but spanner is not enough because it's a tight bolt. So we're gonna lower the engine so we expose bolt at the bottom. And then we're gonna raise the engine and undo those other two. As you maneuver engine up and down, make sure you keep checking what's going on underneath and on the top, so you don't break any sensor, you don't push it too high or too low. So I think it can go reasonably low in my experience, but when you're pushing it up, you need to be careful. Lots of sensitive bits on the top and you don't want to crush them. Now I can fit the brake bar, just about enough space. Maybe I took it even lower than I should, but nevertheless. Once it's going, you can take it out by hand. There we go. Now we're gonna raise the engine and remove remaining those two bolts. Actually, the other one is just here, so I might reach it with the same brake bar while it's down, and then we'll do the top one. Yeah, the other one is very close. Let me show you. So that's one, and another one just on the top of that. You see I've removed just bolt, and another one is just there. So we're gonna remove another one from the bottom. Easy peasy. So I have undone this bolt on the bracket, but there is not enough space to take it out. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna raise the engine again now, and we undo the top bolt, which sits in here inside there. So we'll definitely need to raise the engine for that one, and then we'll deal with everything from the top. Yep. So these are 3 bolts I've taken out. One of them is slightly longer, the one that was in this corner. So those 2 at the bottom were the same, and this one is slightly longer. It has an option to do this spline as well. So after a bit of struggle, I took it out. That's the bracket. So as we normally do, we put these bolts where they belong. And now we have to remove this plastic cover that held on 4 screws, if I'm not mistaken, and there was 1 plastic top, which I think I've broken last time anyway. And then it doesn't matter that much. It's just a plastic top. So let's remove this plastic. Let's have a look what the type of this screw. Oh, it's a Torx. Looks like T30 Torx 1. There is another one. Basically 4, and then at the bottom I have this plastic thingy. I think I broke it last time. You just stick a screwdriver here and then just push the top and then just undo this clip. So simple as that. So that's screws. We're gonna undo and remove this. I'm gonna take it out and then I'll show you position of bolts. It's simple, just screws here, here, to at the bottom. Easy. Plastic cover, you can do it. So after a bit of wiggling up and down, I've removed this cover. As you can see, it held on 4 screws, 2 here, 1 and 1, T30s. Good point, they can't be taken out, so once you undo them, they stay with the cover, so you don't lose them. And then there was a tab, which I broke last time, because as we know, I'm a professional mechanic. So I just, with a screwdriver, I broke it last time, but it's just to tap you with a flathead screwdriver, you undo it. So take it out. Now we have everything exposed and we can deal with the cam belt. Now before we start anything on our cam belt and pulleys, we need to lock crankshaft, camshaft and high pressure pump into the servicing position, first cylinder all the way up. As far as I know, for that we use Crankshaft Locker, Camshaft Locker. On the previous generations we used to have tools like this. You lock the crankshaft with this. I didn't really like it, so this will not work on this car anyway, so forget that. It's a new generation and I like the new tools a little bit better. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce a new tool set for Euro 6 cars. Look at that, same color as my car. I'm such a stylish guy. Right, so we have a crankshaft locker, completely different, which is like that, like this. It contains of 2 parts. So we have a little O-ring here, tiny bit, so it can go through. And when it does, put this O-ring back on. So this is how it works now. So these 2 pins will go into the crankshaft sprocket, right where these bolts used to go were for the auxiliary belt pulley. And then we have this pin that will, as we turn, it will lock nice and tidy our crankshaft. And then we have 2 pins, same as before. We can use them. Also I have one little thingy, little nut that doesn't come with the pin, with the tool set. Sometimes, you know, because this is plastic, and if it breaks, and if you need to take the pin out, I use same size nut, so we can use like a nail puller, but that's my cheating. I'll leave a link to this in description. It's not that expensive if you buy somewhere like on eBay or on Amazon. I leave as many links as I can, useful links. By the way, everything I do as well, I have a link in description for step-by-step instructions. So this will be put on my website as with screenshots and just text instructions if you don't want to watch the video next time you do it, or it's even available in PDF format, so you can print it out for yourself and just go to the garage and not worry about messing with the video. Let's lock crankshaft, camshaft in a service position. So if you've never done it before, let me show you how it works. We have a crankshaft pulley just there, sprocket, and then we have camshaft, high pressure pump. This is our tensioner. This is our water pump, and we have two little guide rollers, one and another one, just this one here. Simple. So what we care timing about, I'm not sure about high pressure pump why they care about timing, but we do timing for that one as well. So camshaft and crankshaft, as your pistons go up and down, your valves are opening and closing, so it needs to be aligned. This is what opens your valves, and this is what turns your pistons. So this is smaller, so for every 2 turns of the crankshaft pulley sprocket, we have only 1 turn of this. So what we're gonna do, as you can see, there's a little arrow here, this one. So in a service position is gonna be pointing up. So if you lock the crankshaft, that one in the bottom, and this arrow pointing down, that means you need to do another full turn of the crankshaft till the arrow points up. So it looks like now it's a halfway through. Let's go to the crankshaft and lock the crankshaft first. Apart from these 2 pins, we have little groove here, little hole for this pin. So that's exactly where this locker have to go. So that means it has to go at the moment this way, which is quite far away from being locked, because it needs to be locked in this hole here. Let me show you. So once you lock it, it will go into this hole here. And one important thing, especially maybe when you're removing, it's not as important, but when you're fitting new belt, when you're adjusting it, every time you lock, it has to go clockwise before you lock it. You can't just go over and then you turn back and lock it. It has to go always clockwise, because on this side we have a tensioner. So this is hard side, this is soft side. So we have to always go clockwise before you lock it. That's important. So we take our 19mm 12-sided socket, some long extension, so we can turn it. As you turn the engine, it will go easy, then hard, then easy, because pressure builds up, valves opening and closing. So that's how it works. This is roughly before we lock. I'm gonna check the arrow. The arrow is pointing down, so we need to make another full turn. As you can hear, some gas going through the valves and stuff. Right, so this is our, oh, that's where it's supposed to be. So let's turn it a bit more. This is our pin. Put it in. Beautiful. The arrow currently is at the top. Lovely. I'm gonna show you the arrow in a moment. So now we just before locking point, we turn little by little till we can lock it. That's it. Crankshaft is locked. So even if we have a little bit misalignment somewhere in camshaft, we can fix this as we do in Volkswagens. I'm gonna show you now. So this is our locked, lovely jubbly crankshaft. Now we know we are in service position. This arrow, this one here, is pointing up. The way it should be locked, you see this elongated hole. So if you look inside, there's like a fork, and there is a hole in the middle, which is like in the engine case. So that's where you put your pin. And then on a fuel pump, you see this little fork here, and there is a hole in the block as well. So this one is slightly off, but even manual says it's not a big deal if it's slightly off. So if it's off like up to this point, middle, so it's not a problem. So these pins I have, for some reason, well, anytime I try to adjust timing or something, and these pins for some reason don't even want to fit inside there. So instead I should use 6mm drill bit, but I use 5.5mm because trust me, from my experience, I've done quite a few cambelts on wags, and trying when you are adjusting it to make it to make the pin fit, you have to make it absolutely perfect. So 0.5mm, I don't think it will make much difference, but as you can see, when we fit it in, it will go all the way in. So this camshaft is locked now. High pressure pump, we can't lock it at the moment. I just leave it like that. I won't bother anyway. We'll take the belt off and then we'll align the rest. So let's just sum up. If you lock the crankshaft, if this both a little bit off, you can't lock them, it's not a problem. That means your timing is slightly off, but don't worry about it, you can align it later. So if you can't fit the pin in either of those, don't worry, it's all good. So first what we're gonna do is to undo the nut in the middle of the tensioner pulley, which is 15mm nut. So it's gonna loosen the tensioner a little bit. It's quite tight, can be. It's supposed to be tight. I think I've put some thread lock last time, maybe not. So now with this 15mm nut loose, we take our 6mm Allen. Allen key comes with the kit, but I prefer use my own. I think this is a little bit better quality. So we stick into this hole, Allen hole just here above the nut, and then we turn it anti-clockwise as far as it goes to make it loose. Additionally, we can take 13mm socket and I remove this top idler. Now with everything so loose, we can take the belt off, maybe start with the water pump, and then we take our belt off everywhere it has been. If you're taking belt off for some reason and you want to refit it, obviously you have to make sure it spins the same way. So either mark it or look at these numbers, letters, so they face the same way. So normally it's out of the engine, the bottom of the letter or number is away from the engine. So take this one off. Now we can remove the remaining bits. Our new kit, cambelt kit, normally they don't sell just belts, so it comes with a new tensioner, new nut, new stud. Sometimes people don't replace this stud, but I like to replace them every time. I'll talk about it later. New guide roller, new nut, and I got new water pump as well, because once we get here, water pump is better to replace it. So we take our 15mm socket and undo this nut. And then take the tensioner out. Then we take this guide roller out, 13mm nut, looks like I found a little leak of coolant here. See, it's all red here, so probably that's where it was leaking. And now we have to remove the water pump. This water pump is a bit advanced comparing to previous generations. It has electric connector, and it also, basically what it does when the engine is cold, it locks these fins of the propeller, and so water warms up quicker. So every little helps. Probably more complicated, more things to fail, but we replace it as often so it doesn't have time to fail, because we replace it with every time we replace the cam belt. I'm gonna press on this connector on the lever and take it off. This is something that's gonna stay, and this is something that's gonna be moved inside. Sometimes they come without this connector. I've seen one video, but if you buy a normal kit, which includes everything, so new pump will come with a new connector. So we have 3 M10 bolts, 1, 2, and 3. Well, you can't go wrong with them. So basically, like this one, just 2 more. And put the tray underneath, because it's gonna start leaking coolant as we undo them. So with the last bolt out, it's already leaking little by little. So I'm not gonna take it out straight away, because otherwise it will be big flow. So I just let it go. Or take it all out. There we go. This is our pump. This is what I mean with this actuator. This ring goes over this fence, and then it stops circulating water. Oh, you see, it's all doesn't look very good. That's probably where I was losing coolant. The other thing we can renew is these 2 studs. They come with a new kit, but I'm not gonna replace them now. I have a video how to replace them with my previous car, Volkswagen Charan. Very similar setup. I'm gonna put a link in description how to replace these studs. Basically what you do, you take 2 M8 nuts and lock them on a thread, one against each other, proper tight, and then you undo by the inner nut. You undo and then lock it on a new stud, and then tighten up to 15 Newton meters. Proper lock them, and then on the top one you lock it. The reason why you want to replace it, if they lose, this one feel very solid. Maybe I replaced them last time. I think I did. Have a look in the video description. I have a link to my YouTube video, and also straight to the timestamp where I exactly replace these studs. So if you want to replace them, if they are loose, or you just want to put new ones, have a look in the video description and you'll see how to do it. It's not that bad, but normally mechanics, from what I see, they try not to bother with these, because these in the past, in the previous generations, they were like quite sensitive, and I don't know, I never had problems replacing them. I always replace these studs, but today I just don't feel like it. Meanwhile, let's clean this all up and start fitting new stuff. Make your own research. I've got this SKF, which is not too bad. I got it from Autodocs. There are different good brands like Gates, like can't even remember, but make your own research. Most of them are pretty good, so you can't go wrong with them. New water pump comes with the new studs. Make sure that surfaces are nice and clean, and then you insert new pump. New pump comes with a seal already. Sometimes in some not manuals, some people may recommend to put some grease here. Never ever put grease here, because it will eat rubber with the temperature and it will start leaking. That's why people put some extra sealants. Nothing, just use it as it is. You might lubricate it with the coolant a little bit so it stays nice and clean, and then just insert it. I'm gonna start this bolts by hand. We are going to put this new connector through this little hole. And then it clips into place where it should be. There we go, like that. And then we can reconnect the connector till it clicks. There we go. Tightening torques for water pump is different sources say slightly different things. Some say 40 Newton meters. The official Skoda website that offers manuals, they say it's 20 Newton meters plus 45 degrees. So we're gonna tighten it up to 20 Newton meters and then turn additional 45 degrees. Best to do it evenly all the way around so it sits in properly. That's 20. $20. $20, and now we turn another 45 degrees, which is 1/8 of the turn, so 90 degrees, half of 90 degrees. If you don't have enough space to do the full 45 degrees, you can just check. If you don't have a tool that measures degrees, you can just look at mark yourself some letter, and then you look as it turns for 90 degrees, or some mark on the socket. There we go. Now we came to the point where some mechanics make a shortcut. What they do, they just if any of these sprockets not locked, high pressure pump or camshaft, what they do, they just turn using this tool, because it will fit in here perfectly, and it will fit in here. So, and it has a square for the extension, 1/2 inch square, so you can turn, align holes, and you can lock here this and this, and then you fit the cambelt. However, manufacturers recommend slightly different way. It's a longer way, but it's the proper way. So I'm gonna go by manufacturer's recommendations, and before we fit the belt, we're gonna loosen central bolts, this one and this one. This is not, this is bolt. So the actual camshaft and high pressure shaft, they will have a plane in relation to these sprockets. So this little bolt here, it's an elongated hole, so that will limit play in this sprocket, and this one has some internal play as well. So what we're going to do is undo this nut and undo this bolt. To do so, not to damage any pins, what manufacturer's manual recommends, we take all pins out and we're gonna loosen these. First, what we are going to do is undo this, just loosen, don't take it out, this little securing screw, like half a turn, so it's loose. Then we are going to fit this tool, and to counter hold, and that's 18mm bolt, and we're gonna loosen this bolt in the middle. It's a 100Nm bolt, so just make it loose. And what we have now, as you can see, it has a play here as long as this screw allows it. Now we're gonna loosen this one. This is 24mm nut, should be also pretty tight. There we go. It's loose now. So this outer bit, as you can see, it's moving as well. Limited move, but still it's moving. Let's look at that hole inside. Still more or less aligned. Yeah, it is aligned, so we can fit the pin. If not, use the tool, turn the sprocket and fit the pin. This in here, this fork needs to go around this hole here. So we're gonna use the tool and gonna lock it. High pressure pump now, and the camshaft. So I'm gonna lock. This one fits easily, the way it should, so that's good. As for high pressure pump, I'm gonna turn it till I can put the pin in. I don't really even need the extension for this one, because it doesn't seem to be so hard. There we go. It's in. I'm gonna undo this plastic bit because it seems to, oh yeah, there we go. So this is our situation now. As you can see, camshaft locked in proper position, but we have a play here, so we can fit the belt properly. High pressure pump in a position where it should be, but we have a play. We don't. Yes, we do. As you can see, we have a play on this outer sprocket. So that's the way it's done properly. Now we'll start putting new components. So new cambelt kit comes with the new idler roller. Tighten this to 20Nm. There we go. It's on. Now this is our tensioner pulley. It has a sticking out bit at the back. It has to go into the groove just on the back. I'll show you now. So right, let me show you, into here. You see it like a rectangular square here. This one here. This one. So we put our tensioner in there, so it sits in there. Insert our Allen key into this hole and turn it anti-clockwise all the way it goes. That's our maximum away position. Just reminding you that with all these loose, we are following manufacturer's recommendations, no shortcuts. I'm gonna fit this guide roller. and tighten it to 20 Newton meters. Next, what we are going to do is all these loosened sprockets, you turn all the way to the right, each one of them, so as far to the right it goes, all the way clockwise. I'll explain you why in a moment. Now we are ready to fit new belt. Some people recommend make sure that the letter's facing you, but I don't think it's that important. But what is important, make sure as you fit it, these sprockets all the way to the right, because when we're gonna fit the belt, we're gonna put the tension on this tensioner, it will pull it back, so these sprockets will go back a little bit, and it will be in the middle of its elongated hole, and this will be in the middle of its play, and that's where we can adjust them. Okay, so done that. Starting from the crankshaft, from the bottom, and then work it the way around clockwise. You fit the belt. What I've done here, I've turned this middle bit to find the maximum away position, and now our belt sits happy all the way around. So now we can tighten, put this tensioner into correct position and tighten it. Let me give you a closer look of what's going on with the tensioner. You see this little pointy bit, just a sec, this little triangle arrow, it needs to go in that gap, in between that gap. I will say 5mm past, because as we do some adjustments it will go back a little bit. So you turn this, as you see it gives some tension, so you turn it till you can see it now. Give it tension so it stays in between that metal, but I would say go about just past it, just to the edge of this gap, because as we do some adjustment it will go back, and it needs to be at least in the middle or up to 5mm to the right. So we do 5mm to the right clockwise, and then we're gonna lock this nut in the middle. And what some mechanics do, and I'm gonna do that as well because it's quite important, even though it's going to be tight nut, 20 Newton meters plus 45 degrees, I'm going to apply some thread lock to that one and then tighten it up. Just a tiny bit of thread lock. Thread lock is like a glue for nuts. Just to prevent it from being undone, which is highly unlikely anyway with the correct torque, nevertheless. Tightening torque to that, it even says on a cover. Where is our cover? Normally it says. So as you can see, 20, I'm not sure if you can see it on the camera, 20 Newton meters plus 45 degrees. That is important. So with that nut tight already slightly to make sure that that pointer is in correct position, I'm gonna tighten it up to 20 Newton meters. That's 20 Newton meters. And 45 degrees, which is gonna be about half of 90 degrees, as we know. So like this, 45. So this is now set. Do not worry about it. It may go back a little bit. That's why I recommended to go 5 millimeters past the gap. So that's it, done. Cambelt is fitted. Technically, if we want to cheat, we can tighten all these bolts, take the pins out, reassemble, off you go. It will work. It will be fine. But we want to be perfect. We want to go by the manufacturer's recommendations. What we're gonna do, we will tight, but then we'll check and we'll do necessary alignments if it's necessary. What we're gonna do before we check, we tighten this little screw. Tightening torque for this one is like 9 Newton meters, so you don't have to go crazy. It's just a limiter that stays there. Then we can take this pin out. Insert the counterhole tool and tighten this nut up to 20 degrees for now. I'm gonna remove this handle because I don't want to lose alignment here. We're not gonna, manufacturers doesn't recommend to tighten this any of these sprockets with the pins inside, but because we're not going for the super hard, we're just doing 20 Newton meters to make it temporarily. So we tighten this one up to 20 Newton meters as well, the high pressure pump. Now we can take the pin out. So now we can see that this hole right in the middle, this is right in the middle in that fork. We only have left with a locked crankshaft. This bolt proper torque is 100 Newton meters and this one is 95 Newton meters. So we're gonna make them tighter later on if there is no need for adjustment. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna remove that locker and do two full turns of the crankshaft till this arrow goes up again, and then we make sure you lock it as it goes clockwise because of the tensioner on this end. So you need to turn it clockwise before you lock it, so everything is aligned here. And then we check if we can fit pins. Off we go. If not, then we do some adjustments and I'll show you how. There we go. It's locked. Now let's check these marks. Look at that. This one is perfect, so I'm gonna leave it as it is. And this one, the high pressure pump, it doesn't have to be perfect fit here, even though we have it perfect, as long as it's like up to this middle mark. So if it's slightly off, it's not a big deal. Even manufacturer's manual says so. But as you can see, we can fit this one perfectly in. Now let's try this pin. It doesn't want to go properly. So we're gonna do some adjustment now. So lucky you. So for this one, I will not worry about it. I'm gonna tighten it up now up to 95 degrees. So this one is done. This one I don't like, it doesn't go in properly. So high pressure pump is sorted. Make sure. There we go. We can forget about the high pressure pump now. And let's align. Technically it's kind of really close, so could keep it, but I want to show you if you can't fit the pin at all, and if it's off, I'll show you how to align it. We take this locker out from the crankshaft. Then you need second person to help you if you don't have a shorter 19mm spline socket, because long one will not fit through here, but you need to operate it from the top, or you have ask somebody to help you. Basically what you do, if you can't fit the pin, depending which way the wheel needs to go, if it needs to go clockwise, all you do is just turn crankshaft now till you can fit the pin. If it needs to go anti-clockwise, then you go past the locking point back a little bit, because every time anything you lock on a cambelt system, before you lock it, it has to go clockwise. So in our case, I just turn it back a little bit to show you, to give you a point. So now, as you can see, we cannot fit this pin, and we turn little by little till we are able to fit the pin. There you go, it's all the way in. So now it's in correct position. We don't know what position is crankshaft now. So next thing we do, we just need to align crankshaft to the correct position of camshaft. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna loosen all this little business, this little bolt, and these 18mm. We're gonna counter hold it. And we're gonna loosen it. So now it's all loose. And undo this one so it's proper loose. So this can all move now. Now we go back to our crankshaft, turn it anti-clockwise, or if it needs to go clockwise, basically turn it anti-clockwise a little bit and then lock it clockwise, unless it needs to go clockwise already. Sorry, I'm going on about this because I know how difficult to align to fit the pin in if you don't do it properly. I've done it, I've been there, so that's why I'm going on so much about it. I hope you got my idea. So I'm gonna go back a little bit. My neighbor has got Porsche, as you can hear. Good for him, he likes to rev it up. So, I hope you can hear me. Now we're turning till we can lock it. There we go. It's in. So, this is correct position. That is correct position. Now we tighten it up again. Check it. If you can't fit the pin, repeat it till you can fit the pin. This one, don't worry about it as long as it's not too much off, like as I showed you on the marks. So don't worry about that one. This one is done. So now we're gonna tighten this all up. 20 Newton meters, 9 Newton meters this one. 2 full rotations and check if it fits. Make sure nothing moves. 20 Newton meters. Pin can come out. And tighten this one. This one is only 9 Newton meters. It doesn't play that much role. at the moment, so I'm not gonna tighten it. I'm gonna check the torque once I'm done. So now 2 full rotations. Now we take the locker out from the crankshaft and do 2 full rotations. Pin is out, everything done. Now, moment of truth. The crankshaft is locked properly. We take our pin, as you can see, it goes all the way in, nice and easy. Well, this is 5.5 millimeters, so it will be a little bit loose. Ideally, it should be 6. If you want perfection, use 6 millimeter. So there you go. Now we're all happy. I'm gonna tighten this with a counter hold up to 100 Newton meters. This is 9 Newton meters, which is just does nothing much at the moment. It was just securing pin for elongated hole, but nevertheless 9 Newton meters, 100 Newton meters. So with the counter hold we do our 100 Newton meters. Done. This little fellow (9 Newton meters). There we go. I'd like to draw your attention to this pointer bit. As you can see, it's still kind of in the gap, but it's towards the left edge of the gap. So that's why my advice, as you do it initially, this tensioner, do it slightly to the right. Don't leave it in the middle of the gap, otherwise it will go back during adjustment anyway. So but this applies to the engine cold. Make sure your engine is cold, so when it's hot it's completely over the place. So if you have a look, well, this cover is not that easy to take off, but in previous generations it was slightly easier. So if you see with the engine hot, it's all over the place, and when the engine is running, it's also like all over the place. So with cold engine, it should be within the gap. Okay, so now I'm not gonna waste your time with showing you reassembling. Just do it in reverse sequence. All the step-by-step instructions, my website, link in the description, check it. Also, when you're filling up the coolant, run the engine, fill up again. So because it will take some coolant, it will fill up the air gaps. Put the heating on full heat on all possible climate zones, and keep it running and keep checking coolant. It may drop, maybe you leave it overnight, you drive tomorrow, and then it will tell you, oh, low coolant. So make sure you check your coolant and keep topping it up as air gaps go away. I think that is it pretty much. Thank you for watching, and more stuff about this car, some other cars, see my website and all useful links in description. Thank you for watching.